Welcome to Father-Son Flight Sim. So today we're going to talk about the Non-Directional Beacon and the Automatic Direction Finder, or NDB/ADF. I'm using this handy simulator which I found at luismonterio.com. Thank you for the Flash simulator here. It really is a good way to describe how the Non-Directional Beacon and ADF actually function together. The non-directional beacon station will be represented on your sectional through this series of magenta circular dots, and next to it will be a box which will have the frequency and the code identifier for it. But essentially what the NDB station does is it sends out an omnidirectional signal, like a beacon, right? And then your ADF on the plane, tuned into that frequency, will always point to the strongest source of that signal. So it'll always point, in other words, to the station. And, you know, when we talk about non-directional beacons, we always talk about bearings to the station or bearings from the station. Now I have my little plane here, which is pointing due north. I have a magnetic north represented over the NDB, and look at my position relative to the station, and look at the direction of the ADF relative to the plane in the center. You can see that it is actually pointing somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 degrees or so. I can show that here with the magnetic bearing. If I were to draw, yeah, 46 degrees. Now look at what happens when I move the plane as I fly past the station. As I go, you can see what's happening to the dial. It is rotating and always pointing to the station relative to the plane. Now when I move the plane over here to the right side, guess what happens? It does the same thing. It points basically to the station. If I'm flying directly to the station and I pass the station, you'll notice that with the dial basically quickly turning around. So with this information, I now have sort of like a secondary magnetic pole, if you will, to determine how I can navigate to and from stations using bearings. And I'll show you a little bit about how that works. So let's say I want to go, I'm somewhere out here, and I want to fly to the station. Well, that's pretty easy. All I'd have to do is turn the plane until the needle points directly up. So let's turn the plane. There we go. I'm going to slightly here, and I'm turning now towards the station. Now my needle is pointing straight up, and now I'm flying to the station. But notice that this heading dial did not change. That's because this has nothing to do with the reading that you get on the ADF. It is there basically to just help you mentally calculate bearings from your heading. So if I now change to the direct to the station, you can see my heading is now, let me get this out of the way. My heading is now 45 degrees on my heading indicator, and I had to turn the dial for the heading knob on my ADF to 45 degrees to sync those two things up, right? So if I wanted to fly to the station, all I have to do is keep this needle pointed straight up, and I will fly to the station. Now, as I get closer to the station, it gets more and more sensitive. A small little deviation will cause longer or wider and wider swings of the needle until finally it gets so sensitive that you can't navigate off it anymore, and it flips around. It's a momentary as you just pass over the station, and then you can continue flying. Now, if I want to continue flying on that same heading from the station, I have to keep the rear part of that needle pointed to 45 degrees. right? So with this information, I can also do some other pretty cool things. Now, if I want to start, let's say if I want to fly to the station on 45 degrees, but I want to fly away from the station once I get there, let's say at a different heading, well, then let's say I want to fly away from the station going, let's say, due east 090, right? Well, in order to do that, I've already overflown the station. I have to now put in a interception angle, let's say 30 degrees more, which would be 120, right? And then I will match the heading of 120 onto the ADF, and I will fly that heading until the tail of the arrow, because I'm flying away from the station, hits the 90 degrees or due east from the station, and then I will turn the plane to match that heading. So let's see how that looks like. So I'm going to fly, and you see how the needle is changing as I get closer and closer to 90 degrees away from the station. Once I hit 90 degrees away from the station, then I turn the plane. Let's see, turn the plane to 090. Let's see if I can do that. Wrong way. There we go. And see what happened to the needle? It went straight up. And now to continue to navigate off that, I'm going to change my heading knob to match my heading. So now, so long as I keep this needle, the back of the needle, pointed straight up, then I'm going to remain on that bearing from the station. Now, if I get off course, let's say I start drifting this way, right? Well, I'm going to now have to intercept that, right? So I know that I'm on a I'm on a more positive angle, which means I have to go less than 90 degrees to get back to it. So I may just, correct a little bit to the left. Sorry, a little bit to the left. Let's say 080. Then I'll again match the ADF to my actual heading, and then I'll fly that until the needle comes back to 90 degrees. Now that I'm back on that bearing, I'm going to go ahead and turn back to the direction I want, and then reset my heading to match on the ADF, and now I'm back on course. So that's also something that's cool. Let's say if I have an ADF, or sorry, an NDB at an airport, and I want to line up to a particular bearing off of that NDB so that I can say line up to a runway or line up to an approach that I want to get to that airport, I can fly along. Let's say in this case the bearing I want to fly will be let's say due north, and I'm heading due east, right? All I'd have to do is keep flying until the needle hits due north to the station. There's the needle now hitting due north. And then I turn. Keep doing the same mistake. And you can see it goes right to the top as I steer to the station. Whoops, sorry. Let me just plug it in. There we go. And then I would, in order to stay on that, I would then change the ADF dial so that it matches what heading, so I have that reference there. Now I can also, if I have two non-directional beacon stations, I can triangulate. So I can also, let's say if I'm flying off here somewhere and I don't know where I am exactly, and I have a station, let's say over here, and then I have another station straight ahead, right? I can dial in the first frequency get a bearing off the station, turn into the 2 direction, and start flying to the station. Then I could line up my heading indicator to match my heading, or my ADF knob to match my heading, like I've done here. And then I can basically just tune in the other station while staying on that heading. And let's say I'm over here now, and this is the other station I want to dial in. I dial in the other station, and now I have a relative bearing from that station. So I can see that I'm at a 040 bearing from this station, and it was a 315 bearing to the other station. So now I can triangulate on the map, and I know exactly where I'm at just by looking at 2 non-directional beacon bearings. Now, if you remember last time, we did a flight on dead reckoning, and we were a little off on the on the leg, right? And we were, a little bit in danger of going off course. Well, it turns out that airport has a non-directional beacon on it. It would have been so much easier for me to just tune in that station, have the needle point straight up, match my heading indicator to my course, and just fly that until I reached the airport. It would have been a lot more accurate than trying to do it through dead reckoning. So you have a huge advantage by having a radio navigational aid to do that. So let's go to our plan today. Now we're going to be at Lumberton Regional Airport again. This is where we ended our dead reckoning flight last time. If you recall, I came in here, I was a little off course. I saw the airport, turned in, and then landed. But this has a non-directional beacon right on the airport. Next to the symbol for the non-directional beacon, there'll be a box like this one in magenta. It'll have the frequency, in this case 359, and the letter identifiers, RSY. Now these dots to the right are the Morse code for R, S, and Y. And the reason why that's there is because you can turn into the comms. If you activate the ADF through the comms, you will hear the Morse code come through on your radio, and you can verify that the station that you've dialed in is exactly the right one. In this area, you can see there are 3 non-directional beacons in pretty close proximity to each other. So today I'm going to try flying. I'm going to take off. I'm not sure which runway. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to take off on a runway, and then I'm going to turn directly into this non-directional beacon, which is I guess it's pronounced the jiggle or jiggle or something like that. The 2-letter identifier is JB, and the frequency is 384. And I'm going to keep that dial right on the 2, or right on the top of my ADF. And then I have a choice. I can either navigate from this non-directional beacon on this heading, or I can dial in this other one, Dylan, which is DLC, frequency 274, and just use that and fly to the station. Or another thing I can do, let's say if aircraft traffic is taking off in this direction and sort of creating this head-on situation, I can go out here and put that in my plan. Now what I've got is I can navigate from this ADF on a westerly bearing until I get the appropriate intercept over here, which looks like it's the 006 radio from the Dylan ADF, NDB. When I have that, I can switch over to the Dylan and then fly directly to, and now I'll be set up perfectly for a 45 degree into runway. It looks like 05. Right? And on the way back, I can do the same kind of thing. I can just fly out on this thing. Let's see. Let's go Let me reset this here. I can fly out. Let's say if I want to, you know, sort of avoid some air traffic coming out of here or something, I can set a point out here. And now I fly off the 031 radial, or actually the bearing, I should say. We don't say radials for non-directional beacon, until I hit the 099 into Lumberton, the Robertson non-directional beacon, and then I switch over and start flying to the station once I've hit that bearing. And that will set me up perfectly again for a 45 into perhaps this runway, or I can just go into a base to final for runway, I think that's runway 13. So with that in mind, I can, you know, I could use the nav log if I want, and I can sort of also get approximate distances and times if I want to do it that way. So I can use a sort of a combination of getting a bearing and getting a time to get to position away from a station. Let's say if I hit the station, and in order to get to this point, I know it's going to be, let's say roughly, if I do this, it's going to be roughly 7 minutes to that fix. So I'd fly in that direction for about 7 minutes, and then I would look for the other radial, or the other bearing, I should say, to Lumberton, and then switch over at that time. So you can use a combination of dead reckoning and this radio navigation to get approximate times where you should be looking for things. Alright, so we're going to be flying in this area. I'm going to be doing some exercises around each of these non-directional beacons, and we will you know, test out how this actually works in the plane and what it actually looks like. And so let's head over to the airport and get into the plane. Alright, we're back at Lumberton Airfield, and I'm ready for takeoff. I've already done my startup and run up, and I'm ready to take off at runway 05 at Lumberton. The winds are blowing at 050, which is favoring a northeast departure. Let's jump into the plane here. We have a little bit of a cloud layer at 4,000. We're going to be well below that. I'm going to stay at about 2,000 feet. Here's our flight plan. I've got the plan laid out to where we're going to fly to the JB NDB and then fly straight out west until we hit the appropriate direction to the Dillon Airport. So I'm going to use the trick that we had to find an intercept off of 2 NDBs. So here's our map. I know I have the moving map today, but I'm here waiting to take off. And then I'm going to basically do a left pattern flying directly to Jiggle. And then I'm going to fly easterly until I hit the north bearing directly south to the Dillon NDB. Alright, so let's fly the first leg here. And I've already got my frequencies dialed in. Jiggle is 384. I've got 384 dialed in over here and ready to switch over to the Dillon NDB, which is 274. So when I get to the station, or when I get to where I think I need to be, I will just switch over to the next NDB and we'll get the bearing from there. Alright, let's go. Let's see if there's anybody coming. Okay. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey, taking off runway 05 for a southwesterly departure. Lumberton traffic. All right, let's go. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is turning left crosswind runway 05 for southwest departure. Okay. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey turning left downwind runway 05 for southwest departure, Lumberton traffic. Alright, a little bit hazy out today. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey on downwind, runway 05 is departing to the southwest, final call, Lumberton traffic. Okay, now that we're on our departure, I'm going to go ahead and turn. I've got the NDB dialed in. I'm going to turn until it heads direct, or the needle is directly north. And now I'm going to turn the heading indicator on the ADF to match. It looks like 230. There. And I'll keep it in. I'll keep it basically pointed to the station until I pass it. And then from there, I'm going to fly outward on a west bearing. So we'll see when I pass the station. I don't exactly know where it is. I don't exactly know how far away from it I am, but we'll see when the needle flips over and turns around. So I'm going to keep an eye on it. But I'm going to basically navigate keeping that needle pointed straight at it. If I want to check myself, I have the moving map over here. You can see I am pointing right to it. So it should be any minute now. Once I pass the station, I'm going to turn the timer on so I can have an approximate estimated time on the west, or where I need to check the other bearing. It's getting a lot more sensitive now. There it goes. It just turned around. So I just overflew the station. And now I need to intercept a westerly bearing. So that means I'm going to turn into, looks like 300. Once I get to 300, I'm going to turn the heading to 300, and then once the tail gets onto the westerly heading right there, see it's coming in, then I'll turn due west. Let's get the timer started. Almost there. Okay, we're just about there. I'm going to start turning. And now I'm going to turn this to my actual heading west. And now I'll stay on that. Now I should be on that from JB to the fix is approximately 6 minutes. So at about 5 minutes, I'm going to check the other bearing. Until then, I'm going to basically navigate off of the westerly heading away from the station. You can see I'm heading away from the station. I'm at 1 minute and 30 seconds at this point. I'm going to assume the wind heading is the same as Lumberton because it's pretty close proximity. That means I'm going to be landing on runway 05. So let me put that in here. Let's see. There, okay. Now let's just check where I am on the other dial. Remember, I need to be on a bearing that's due south to the station or north from the station. So let's check. So I still got quite a ways to go before the tail end hits where I need to hit. Dialing back, I'm going to continue to navigate. Off that radial, or off the bearings, I should say, sorry. It's easy to get those confused. Okay, let's check again where we're at. Closer, but not quite there yet. It's coming in though. I can also supplement what I'm doing with pilotage if I have some familiar landmarks, which I don't know if there are any, but there's some towers over that way. Don't really see them. But that's another thing you could do. You could always use pilotage to check that you're in the right place when you expect to be. Daily traffic is 122.9, so I'm going to turn that in.
Lumberton Regional weather. Wind 050 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky conditions 3000.
Alright, so I've got Dylan Unicom frequency dialed in. Just about at 5 minutes, which means I'm going to very soon take over with the other NDB completely. I'm going to get rid of this now because all I needed was that time.
the 6 minutes. And I'm just about there. Almost. So because I'm pretty close, I'm going to stay with now the Dylan. And we're there. Just a little bit early. I think it was supposed to be 5.9 minutes, so almost there. So let's turn into Dylan. And again, I'm going to turn until the needle arrow goes directly up, which is to the station bearing to the front of the aircraft. And now it should be pointed pretty much at a 45 for Dylan. Now let's see, I've got to change my heading now to, looks like 165. To match my heading. And I think I see the airport straight ahead. Let's start getting down to pattern altitude. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is on 45 for runway 05, Dylan traffic. Okay, I think that's the airport right there. Yep. Not exactly a 45, more like a 90. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey, turning downwind from runway 05, full stop. Dylan traffic. Okay. A little close there. Let's get some flaps in. So now I'm not using the NDB anymore, but you'll see it's still pointing directly to the station. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey, turning base for runway 05, full stop, Dylan traffic. Yeah, there it is. I'm in final. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is on final, runway 05 for full stop, Dylan traffic. Okay. Let's finish this up. Got some obstacles at the runway there. I guess it's runway 07. Whoops, my bad. I thought it was runway 05. Must have got confused with another airport. Okay, so you can see we use radial navigation completely. There's the, by the way, there's the NDB tower right there. That's what it looks like. Or there, no, it's there, right there, I think. Well, anyway, that's where the station's pointing to. All right, so now going back, this doesn't have a taxiway, so I'm going to have to back taxi. Now, in order to go back, I'm going to head out on a bearing. Let's say it was roughly 060 or something like that, if I recall, until I get a due easterly direction off the other NDB, and this time it's going to be the Robeson. So it's 359. So let's dial that in. Okay. Actually, why don't I go 030, get a little bit more of a cut there, and then I'll and then I'll land back at Lumberton Regional, and runway, I think it was 05. Okay, that was 05 there. That's why I messed up. Okay. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey, back taxiing onto runway 7 for departure to the northeast. This is braking here, a little bit uneven. Okay. Okay, this is a bit of a short field here. Alright, let's make sure everything good. 070, 070, that's good. I'm going to also turn this into 070 for now. Okay. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey, taking off runway 07 for northeast departure. Dylan traffic. And do a little bit of a short field here, get over those obstacles. Bit of speed. All right. There we go. Okay, so now to get on to the 030 bearing, I'm going to want to turn due north. I'm going to set the ADF to due north. Let's do that first. And then when the tail hits 030, tail of the arrow, needle hits 030, then I know I'm on the right bearing from the station. Dylan traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is departing to the northeast. Final call, Dylan traffic. Okay, so I'm going to be watching that needle go back down to 03. It's going to happen pretty fast because I'm close to the station. Almost there. All right, I'm there. So now 030. And set my dial now to 030. Continue to climb. Okay, leveling out. Okay, let's get back on track here. Okay, let's get on the weather. Make sure it hasn't changed.
Wind 050 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky conditions 3,900 view. Temperature 24, dew point 4. Altimeter 3015.
Okay. Let's get that weather one more time.
Lumberton Regional weather. Wind 050 at 8. Visibility 6. Sky conditions 3,900 view. Temperature 24, dew point 4. Altimeter 3015.
Okay. Staying on course. Pretty soon I'll call Lumberton traffic, let them know I'm coming in. Alright, let's see how far I have yet to go before I get to a 090 bearing. And that's a 090 bearing to the station. This looks like I'm almost there. So I'm just going to wait until that needle comes in, which is just about there. It's almost there. And then proceed to the Robeson NDB. Okay. Now flying to Robeson. Needle is now straight on. Changed my heading to match. And I'm heading directly to Lumberton. So I'm in the south, oh no, I'm heading from the west, so Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is about 10 nautical miles west of the field for runway 05 full stop of Lumberton traffic. Okay. And as I get closer, I'm going to spot the field. It's a little ways up yet. So the runway I need is runway 05. I could try to intercept a radial of 05 to the station, that would require me to cut a little bit to the south. And why don't I do that? So I can show you what it's like. So I'm going to go, let's say 050. Or no, 020 will be fine. 020 will be fine. Okay, so let's go 020. And now when the needle gets to 05, I'll know I'm perfectly lined up for a straight in into Lumberton. We got a little ways to go. Want that needle, it's got about what, 10, 20, about 35 more degrees to move. Almost there. A little bit more. I'm almost on the right bearing. About 15 more degrees. Okay, about 5 more degrees. Alright. Now let's make it so the needle goes up. So I mean I'm on the 050 bearing to that station. There's the airport right there. There's the field. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is straight in for runway 05, about 3 miles out. 4 Tango Whiskey, Dillon traffic. Or Lumberton traffic, sorry. Okay, so now that I see the field, I'm just going to fly it, but let's go ahead and put that in. Okay. A little high here. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is on final runway 05, full stop landing, Lumberton traffic. Okay. Back where we started. Slow up the plane here. Get some flaps in. Plenty of runway here. Okay, let's go back to parking. Lumberton traffic, Cessna 714 Tango Whiskey is clear of runway 05, final call, Lumberton traffic. Well, okay, so that pretty much covers how you use non-directional beacons in combination with your automatic direction finder, your ADF, for navigation. And you can see it's quite more accurate than just doing dead reckoning. Even as simple as it is, right? And I know it's a very old form of radio navigation. Many of the stations are being removed or closed down now that we have more advanced ways of doing this with GPS and with VORs. But it still has its place, and it's still a great tool to use when you're first starting to use radio navigation. It's the first thing you should progress to after trying to learn dead reckoning. And it's a lot simpler than VOR navigation, but it has its limitations to that of VOR navigation. NDBs also have a somewhat limited range, so you know, sometimes when you're too far out, you're not going to pick up the station. And so you have to have a series, if you're going to do long distances with NDBs, you have to have a string of non-directional beacons if you want to do that. But it's still a great tool to have in the airplane. They're pretty standard. You pretty much see them on a lot of planes. Let's go ahead and shut down here. Let's go standby. Avionics off. And I hope you've had a good time today on Father-Son Flight Sim. Hope this has been informational for you, and that you get something out of it if you're having trouble understanding non-directional beacons. And hopefully this has opened your eyes a little bit. All right, well, thank you for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to be alerted to other videos, be sure to hit that alarm bell. And we'll see you next time on Father-Son Flight Simulator. Have a good day.